Okay, so the next step in the process of working on your one-point perspective bird's eye view cityscape, we want to continue to attempt anchoring all of these 5 buildings to the ground just a little bit more. Now, we did a really good job with that by adding the ground level of all 5 of the buildings. We did a really good job with that of having the proper kind of perspective to the windows. So the windows and the direction that they go really help, again, to anchor it. But to take this one step further, we're going to add a sidewalk. Now, the sidewalk really is not that difficult. You're going to follow the ground level of the building, and your sidewalks are going to run parallel to the ground level of the building. Be sure that you use your ruler for it. And let's start with one of the more simple buildings first. So a building that doesn't have a whole lot of angles and bends to it. So I am going to take this structure here. I'm going to put a couple of dots just out past the ground level of this. And then with my ruler, I'll go through and connect. But what I want to double check before I draw that connecting line in front of the building, I want to really double check and see that my ruler is parallel to that ground level. So I'm going to line my ruler up, slide it away just a little bit until I hit those dots. And then when I illustrate the sidewalk, I'm going to draw this so that it's a little bit wider than the width at the ground level for this building. So just a little bit wider than the width of the ground level. The reason for that, at the corners here, think of it as any corner to any sidewalk. You know, if you're walking around the street out in your neighborhood, if you're going to turn left around the corner, if you're going to turn right around the corner, that sidewalk is going to follow along. But you have to have the proper angle to that turn in the sidewalk or to that corner in the sidewalk. And the easiest way to figure out what angle that should be, you follow the rooftop line. So the ground level line that we have for our sidewalk right now is parallel to the ground line of the building, and the ground level line of the building is parallel to the rooftop line. So essentially, we're just kind of following that roof all the way around to give us the proper angle to that sidewalk. So here is that slightly extended corner. I'm going to set my ruler right up against my pencil point, but I'm going to pivot this ruler until it's parallel to this rooftop line. Then I can draw that line, and then it'll stop when it hits the outer edge of the building. I'll do the same thing over on the opposite side. Set my ruler, be sure it's as close to parallel as I can get it to that roof line. Almost there. And then connect just like so. Now, some of the buildings are going to be a little close to one another. And I may end up doing this once I get the sidewalk in front of this building and this building. If it looks like those sidewalks are going to touch, let them touch. Erase the leftover line that's in there. Let it be one continuous sidewalk around those buildings that are a little bit closer to one another. So I'm going to continue adding this. I'm going to set my ruler, illustrate my line, and see I didn't even have the chance to draw this line longer than the ground level. So I'm going to take my eraser, get rid of that little bit here. That way now it looks like this sidewalk is one continuous that wraps around the front side of this first building and the second building. I'm about 99% sure I'm going to do it on this third building as well, but let's see. Yep. All right. We'll go ahead and erase here. And so now these 3 buildings share a sidewalk. So this sidewalk wraps around the front side, around the front side, around the front side. But now I have to add the rear, or that kind of turn in the sidewalk. Set my ruler. Be sure it's parallel to the rooftop line. And there I have it. I'm not going to worry about anything back behind the buildings because we're going to end up adding some trees and some shrubbery and things like that wrapping around. But I'm going to take a few minutes, finish adding this to the front side of this building, the front side of this building, and then we're going to use black colored pencil, just like we used in the belt strap of this angled building, to shade in our sidewalk. Okay, so it looks like I even ended up connecting the sidewalk around my angled building to the sidewalk in front of the apartment window style building. So now, with my black colored pencil, nice and sharp, I'm going to shade all of the sidewalk in a very, very, very light gray first. So I'm going to hardly use any pressure. I'm going to shade that whole thing in, going all the way around, but try to keep it as light as you possibly can. So to create a little bit of depth with all of this, what we want to have it look like is that it's a little bit darker right where that sidewalk meets the front edge of that building or the ground level of that building. So it's a little bit darker along that line. And then it fades light very, very quickly. So it's darker at the front edge of the building and then fades lighter towards what would be the street. So now we're going to add a little more life to these buildings. That way they don't just look like black and gray drawings or white and gray drawings for now. By life, I mean a little bit of color to the apartment style windowed building. To do this, I'm going to color both the windows and the exterior face of the building. For the face of the building, I'm going to use this kind of lightish brown. You could go with any shade of brown. You know, if you've got kind of like a reddish brown, even better, because then it'll give it the look that it's kind of like brick, like a brick red. But I'm going to use my brown, and I'm first going to shade in between all of those windows very, very, very carefully. So be sure that it's nice and sharp. So we got our brown going all the way around the face of the building to do the windows and to do what would look like a sky reflection in the windows. You're going to need two different blues. You want to shoot for the lightest shade of blue that you have and the darkest shade of blue. So here is my lightest, here is my darkest. I'm going to begin nice and light first. I'm going to shade each of the windows very, very lightly. So they're shaded in very lightly first. Now with my darker blue, what I'm trying to kind of create is the illusion that these buildings really do have some actual height to them. Now, when we illustrated the horizontal lines for the windows, those lines got closer and closer and closer to one another the closer they got to the ground level. Well, Things that are further away from us are, number one, going to appear a little bit smaller. Hence, the ground level of the building is smaller or narrower than the rooftop level of the building. The window lines are smaller and narrower at the base than they are at the very top. But the same thing is going to go with color and tone. The further away it is, the darker it should appear. The closer it is to you, the lighter it should look. So to create that illusion with the windows of this building, the bottom half are going to be much, much, much darker than the top half. But I don't want it to look too obvious. I want it to seem very gradual, kind of like a gradual value transition from dark at the bottom to light towards the top. So with my dark blue, and there you have it. Dark blue at the base of the windows so that it looks like they're further away. Remember, the further things are away, the darker they should appear. And then when you get up to the top level, it should look a little bit lighter. Now, if you want to be like super, super color specific with this, what you can do is if you have a darker brown handy, you can take and treat the face of the building, so that brown or that reddish brown that you shaded it, you can treat this very similarly to the way that you did the windows. You can take that darker brown and go just a little bit heavier at the base level so it looks like the brown of that building is slightly darker closer to the ground. So I don't want to darken the whole thing, but I am going to do just a little bit towards the ground level of this. All right, I think that's pretty good.